Kragan mercenaries, he noted with satisfaction. They carried a modified version of the regular Terran Federation infantry rifle, stocked and sighted to conform to their physical peculiarities, with long, thorn-like triangular bayonets. One platoon ran forward, dropped to one knee, and began firing rapidly into what was left of the mob. Four-handed soldiers can deliver a simply astonishing volume of fire, particularly when armed with auto rifles having 20-shot drop-out magazines, which can be changed with the lower hands without lowering the weapon. There was a clatter of shod hoofs, and a company of the King of Konkrook's cavalry came trotting up on their six-legged, lizard-headed, quartz-speckled mounts. Some of these charged into side alleys, joyfully lancing and cutting down fleeing rioters, while others dismounted, three tossing their reins to a fourth, and went to work with their crossbows. Von Schlichten, who ordinarily entertained a dim opinion of the King of Konkrook's soldiery, admitted grudgingly that it was smart work. Four hands were a big help in using a crossbow, too. A Terran captain of native infantry came over, saluting. "Are you and your people all right, General?" he asked. Von Schlichten glanced at the front seat of his car, where Harry Quong, a pistol in his right hand, was still talking into the radiophone, and Hassan Bogdanoff was putting fresh belts into his guns. Then he saw that the Graeco-African brigadier and the Irish-Japanese colonel had gotten the wounded man into the car. The girl, having dropped her bolo, was leaning against the side of the car, one foot heedlessly in what was left of an Ulleran who had gotten smashed under it, weak with nervous reaction. "We seem to be, Captain Podolsky. Very smart work. You must have those vehicles of yours on hyperspace drive. How is he, Colonel?" "We'd better get him to the hospital right away," O'Leary replied. "I think he has a concussion. Harry, call the hospital. Tell them what the score is, and tell them we're bringing the casualty in to their top landing stage." "Why, we'll make out very nicely, Captain. You'd better stay around with your Kragans and make sure that these geeks of King Jaikark's don't let the riot flare up again and get away from them. And don't let them get the impression that they can maintain order around here without our help. The company would like to see that attitude discouraged." "Yes, sir, I understand." Captain Podolsky opened the pouch on his belt and took out the false palate and the tongue clicker without which no Terran could do more than mouth a crude and barely comprehensible pidgin Ulleran. Stuffing the gadget into his mouth, he turned and began jabbering orders. Von Schlichten helped the girl into the car, placing her on his right. The wounded civilian was propped up in the left corner of the seat, and Colonel O'Leary and Brigadier General M'zangwe took the jump seats. The driver put on the contragravity field and the car lifted up. "Them, see if there's a flask and a drinking cup in the door pocket next to you," he said. "I think Miss Quinton could use a drink." The girl turned. Even in her present disheveled condition, she was beautiful, a trifle on the petite side, with black hair and black eyes that quirked up oddly at the outer corners. Her nails were black lacquered and spotted with little gold stars, evidently a new feminine fad from Terra. "I certainly could, General. How did you know my name?" "You've been on Uller for the last 3 months, ever since the city of Canberra got in from Niflheim. On Uller there aren't enough of us that everybody doesn't know all about everybody else. You're Dr. Paula Quinton. You're an extraterrestrial sociographer, and you're a field agent for the Extraterrestrials' Rights Association, like Mohammed Ferriera here." He took the cup and flask from Themistocles M'zangwe and poured her a drink. "Take this easy now. Baldur honey rum, 150 proof." He watched her sip the stuff cautiously, cough over the first mouthful, and then get the rest of it down. "More?" When she shook her head, he stoppered the flask and relieved her of the cup. "What were you doing in that district, anyhow?" he wanted to know. "I would have thought Mohammed Ferriera would have had more sense than to take you there, or go there himself, for that matter." "We went to visit a friend of his, a native named Keeluk, who seems to be a sort of combination clergyman and labor leader," she replied. "I'm going to observe labor conditions at the North Pole mines in a short while, and Mr. Keeluk was going to give me letters of introduction to friends of his at Skilk." With the aid of his monocle, von Schlichten managed to keep a straight face. Neither M'zangwe nor O'Leary had any such aid. The African rolled his eyes, and the Japanese Irishman grimaced. "We talked with Mr. Keeluk for a while," the girl said, "and when we came out, we found that our driver had been killed and a mob had gathered. Of course we were carrying pistols. They're part of this survival kit you make everybody carry, along with the emergency rations and the water desilicator. Mr. Ferriera's wasn't loaded, but mine was. When they rushed us, I shot a couple of them and then picked up that big knife." "That's why you're still alive," von Schlichten commented. "We wouldn't be if you hadn't come along," she told him. "I never in my life saw anything as beautiful as you coming through that mob swinging that war club." "Well, I never saw anything much more beautiful than those 40 millimeters beginning to land in the mob," von Schlichten replied. The aircar swung out over Konkrook Channel and headed toward the blue-gray company buildings on Gongonk Island, and the company airport, swarming with lorries and airboats, where the 10,000-ton Paul Kruger had just come in from Keegark, and the company's one real warship, the cruiser Procyon, was lifting out for Grank in the north. Down at the southern tip of the island, the 3,000-foot globe of the spaceship City of Pretoria from Niflheim was loading with cargo for Terra. "Just what happened while you and Mr. Ferriera were in Keeluk's house, Miss Quinton?" Hideyoshi O'Leary asked, trying not to sound official. "Was Keeluk with you all the time? Or did he go out for a while, say 15 or 20 minutes before you left?" "Why, yes, he did." Paula Quinton looked surprised. "How did you guess it? You see, a dog started barking behind the house, and he excused himself and—" "A dog?" von Schlichten almost shouted. The other officers echoed him, and on the front seat Harry Quong said, "Coo, blimey!" "Why, yes." Paula Quinton's eyes widened. "But there are no dogs on Uller, except a few owned by Terrans. And wasn't there something about—" Von Schlichten had the radiophone and was calling the command car at the scene of the riot. The sergeant driver answered. "Von Schlichten here. My compliments to Captain Podolsky, and tell him he's to make immediate and thorough search of the house in front of which the incident occurred, and adjoining houses. For his information, that's Keeluk's house. Tell him to look for traces of Governor General Harrington's collie, or any of the other terrestrial animals that have been disappearing, that goat, for instance, or those rabbits. And I want Keeluk brought in alive and in condition to be interrogated. I'll send more troops or constabulary to help you." He handed the phone to M'zangwe. "You take care of that end of it, them. You know who can be spared." "But what—" the girl began. "That's why you were attacked," he told her. "Keeluk was afraid to let you get away from there alive, to report hearing that dog. So he went out and had a gang of thugs rounded up to kill you." "But he was only gone 5 minutes." "In 5 minutes I can put all the troops in Konkrook into action. Keeluk doesn't have radio or TV, we hope, but he has his forces concentrated, and he has a pretty good staff." "But Mr. Keeluk's a friend of ours. He knows what our association is trying to do for his people." "So he shows his appreciation by setting that mob on you. Look, he has a lot of influence in that section. When you were attacked, why wasn't he out trying to quiet the mob?" "When they jumped you, you tried to get back into the house," M'zangwe put in, "and you found the door barred against you." "Yes, but—" The girl looked troubled. M'zangwe had guessed right. "But what's all the excitement about the dog? What is it, the sacred totem animal of the Uller Company?" "It's just a big brown collie named Stalin, like half the dogs on Terra. Somebody stole it, and Keeluk was keeping it, and we want to know why. We don't like geek mysteries, not when they lead to murderous attacks on Terrans, at least." The aircar let down on the hospital landing stage. A stretcher was waiting, with a Terran interne and 2 Ulleran orderlies. They got the still unconscious Mohammed Ferriera out of the car. "You'd better go with them yourself, Miss Quinton," von Schlichten advised. "You have a couple of nasty-looking bruises and bumps. A couple of abrasions, too, where those geeks grabbed you. They have hides like sandpaper. And better have that coat cleaned before that goo on it hardens, or it'll be ruined. Yes, you have a lot of it on your uniform, too." He glanced down at the blue-gray jacket. "So I have. And another thing, those letters Keeluk was going to give you, the ones to his friends in Skilk, did you get them?" She felt in the pocket of her coat. Yes, I still have